Welcome back, everyone, to Cyber Voices, the official podcast of the Australian Information Security Association, also known as ASA. I am your host, David Savva-Willett, and it is my pleasure to bring you the diverse voices of the Australian cyber community. I am recording today live from Canberra CyberConnect 2026, ASA's brand new event here in the nation's capital. And my next guest needs a little introduction. Shane Fitzsimmons is the Managing Director of SAFE Leading Advisory and the former Commissioner of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service and the inaugural Commissioner of Resilience New South Wales. He chairs and serves on a long list of boards focused on emergency services, community safety and recovery, and is one of Australia's most recognised voices in leadership under pressure. Shane has just delivered today's opening keynote on leadership in unprecedented times. Trust, values, and resilience were front and center in Shane's keynote. And I want to unpack today what our cyber leaders who listen to this show can take from his experience. If this conversation lands with you, please make sure you subscribe to Cyber Voices on your favorite podcast app and leave us a 5-star review. Shane, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, David. It's a pleasure.
I've literally just grabbed you off the main stage after your keynote. How was it?
Oh, it was great. And look, I ran a little bit over time, so we didn't have as many time for questions. But no, it's a great audience, and I'm sure we'll unpack here. But I think what I talk about certainly transcends all sorts of industries because it's all about people.
Absolutely. And cybersecurity is an industry where leadership skills have really been forefront, especially in terms of managing crisis and crisis that impact multiple people and communities. In a different way, we are certainly sitting on front lines in a lot of ways. And to that point, your career has placed you in some of Australia's most devastating disasters. I was really, and listeners, if you ever get a chance to hear Shane talk, it's a very sobering experience, but a very important one. When everything is on fire, both literally and metaphorically, what do you anchor to as a leader? And more importantly, how do you think that translates to other organizations, especially those that might be facing a cyber crisis?
It's a really good question, David. I think as leaders, no matter the event or the incident or the problem that we are confronting or seeking to deal with, we've got to anchor ourselves in the understanding and the true belief that no matter what we're doing, we're relying on people. We are part of a people organization that is dealing with whether it's a natural disaster, an emergency, whether it's technology or connectedness. Ultimately, whatever our challenge is, it's the people that are working together to work out how we get through that and come out the other side. So people, I think, is the anchor.
That is a really good way of putting it. And it's something that I think the cyber industry has really reckoned with in the last 5 or 6 years with the number of incidents that we've seen across this country and across the world. Is we all come from very technical backgrounds, a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this for 20 years and it was all about the tech back in the day. But these incidents, they've really taught us that it's actually more about people.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important thing. So if I think about my previous role in the fire space or the emergency space, and I reflect on, I did have a bit of a role with our cyber teams in New South Wales in my latter years in government, but I think a couple of things come to mind. Number one, you're right, it's a people business. But I think for the experts, whether they're technical experts, whether they're fire practitioners or fire scientists or whatever it is, our single biggest goal when it comes to customers, when it comes to clients, when it comes to the community, is how do we translate what is often very complex, full of jargon, full of words that those in the industry are really comfortable with, but those outside the community or our customer haven't got a clue about. Our goal as leaders in times of crisis is to communicate in simple words, in plain English, in everyday language that can actually paint the picture accurately, be respectful to the technical boffins and the scientists, if you like, but also, what about those that don't know? I don't really care about all the science and what does that mean to me? What does that mean to me? Where do I fit into this equation? So I think we're in so many ways, we've got to translate language, we've got to translate circumstances and situations into strategy, tactics, and where to from here. So I think our big role is translation.
Yeah, we talk on this show a lot about people in roles like mine. So I'm a chief information security officer in my day job, around our need to be very, very good storytellers.
Yes.
Because it can seem really stressful and scary. And people in general, I think, are a little weary at the moment of just all of these factors outside of their control that are impacting their daily lives. In your keynote, you spoke about what was going on in 2020. We had fires in Australia like we had never seen before. We then moved on to floods. You mentioned the biosecurity issues and critical infrastructure, cyber incidents, and then COVID that
absolutely
happened on top of that. Does all of this that we've experienced and everything else that's happened in the last 5 or 6 years since then, is that why you think we really need to start reminding leaders that, hey, there is a reason why you do this and it's because of the people and the communities that you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think purpose truly matters, and people need to be reminded that they're a part of something because they're seeking to make a difference. And when I think about very much my background and my career, I always default unashamedly to the culture of volunteerism. It is so special, it is so powerful, it is so strong, because it is people showing that individually and collectively, when they're driven by purpose, when they're driven by wanting to make a difference, a meaningful and a positive difference in the lives of others, their local communities and communities much further afield, it reminds us that without any remuneration, people are driven to make a difference in life. Now, when you couple that intuition that we all have instinctively, then you translate that into your career or your employed world. You want to make sure that you're part of something where you feel you are making a difference, a positive difference in the life of others. The other thing I would pick up on, David, that you talked about there, the fire season for us back in 2019-20 through New South Wales and Southeast Australia was unprecedented on so many levels. But the ASA industry is the next event that's going to happen is largely unprecedented because we're riding a wave of leading edge, of the latest, of the newest. We haven't done this before. So your teams, your industry, your people, they're riding a wave that people haven't been on before. And whilst there are historical evolutions and circumstances and events that happen that we build a knowledge base on, what happens now, you want the right people that are absolutely invested in understanding what's happening and why it's happening, but then how do they translate that to the story in the time of crisis or a significant event?
Yeah, and our careers are really built on unprecedented events. They exist in the technological and as opposed to the environmental, which is a lot of your work. But at the same time, I mean, the impact is still the same, right? We keep talking, comes back to people. So you touched on something there as well, which stood out to me a lot during the keynote, which was the care factor, about just how much someone in a leadership position, either volunteer or salaried or whatever it might be, like if you don't care about what it is you're doing, then why are you even there?
Absolutely.
Are we still seeing that there's a lot of people who are maybe in leadership positions for the wrong reason, or are they just needing reminding right now of why they're there?
No, I think the role of a leader has certainly evolved. You know, if you go back decades, the old autocratic, dictatorial sort of leader, they're just not welcome or very relevant anymore in the modern era. I think societies and people and organisations have all evolved. So I think leaders absolutely, in the main, care about what they're a part of. But in my talk today, I think what I tried to articulate was that leadership isn't the sole purview of the person at the top of an organisation or the top of a team. I think when I talk about leadership, I like to talk about leadership as a culture. Leadership is an individual and collective responsibility that we all have in an organisation and in a team, because to me, leadership is in its core essence is about how do we build relationships of trust and confidence with others. Now, whether that's our team members and subordinates in the old language, whether it's our colleagues across the organisation, whether it's the people we report up to, and of course our customers and our community, leadership is about how we behave. It's the values and it's the behaviors and it's the interactions that we have with others. That's, to me, is exercising leadership. We find ourselves when we're parts of teams and parts of organizations that we often find ourselves doing different roles, but as leaders in an organization, none of us are more important or more relevant than anybody else. We've got a place and we've got a role to play, and we've got to care about that role, that place, and how we pull together routinely. But how importantly do we pull together when the crisis happens? And a lot of that capacity in times of crisis is a manifestation of how we've built the foundations in the quiet times, if that makes sense.
It does. And it actually almost answers my next question.
Oh, really?
Almost perfectly. Because I did want to talk about how your keynote puts, the title of it puts trust and values right alongside resilience. And I was going to ask you, in your experience, do trust and shared values actually get built during a crisis, or are they something that you have to have already banked before the siren sounds? Now, it sounds like from what you just said, it's very much the latter.
I think it's a bit of both, to be truthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a fair call, but I think the big difference pre-crisis, your principal interactions on a daily basis with your teams, with your organization, and with your routine connections and activity. When crisis happens, there's a spotlight that usually comes, right? So there's an audience that may not know you, that are going to be really testing and marking you or your organization at that time. So yes, a lot of it is really scrutinized at that point in time. But if you've got strong foundations and there's credibility that moves up through a pre-existing period before that crisis event, I think they are credits, if you like, I think is the word you used, right? I think the single biggest thing when it comes to crisis and when it comes to building that trust and those values, people want to see the real person at whatever level or whatever role they've got. They don't want the imposter, the tosser, the pretender. They want to know, is this person real? Are they telling me the truth? And I think the single biggest thing that leaders can say to build credibility is to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to fill a gap with an answer. Saying, I don't know, but I'll find out and get back to you, is a really big credibility builder when it comes to building that relationship of authenticity. Because historically, I think there has been an unfair expectation, or certainly in my background, there was this unwritten code that a leader had to have an answer, or they were found wanting. Well, I don't subscribe to that. I think true leaders, strong leaders, confident leaders are confident enough to say, I actually don't know. And often their colleague or their team member next to them will be the one with the answer. That's actually a good thing, because as leaders, you want to be surrounding yourself with the best expertise that you can find, and especially the expertise that you don't have, because otherwise all you're doing is creating clones and groupthink. So you want that diversity, you want that skill set. And as the leader, you don't have to have all the answers, but you want to know where you can go to get them.
That will probably ring true to a lot of people in leadership roles in cybersecurity, because it's just such a broad spectrum of skills and jobs and things to understand. I feel it's almost impossible for one person at the top to be able to have expertise and deep domain knowledge across all of them.
You can have really good corporate and industry knowledge, and you can understand where your people are, what they're doing, who's responsible for what. You understand how to get the information, or you understand where to go to someone who will be able to get that information for you, right? So understanding your role, understanding your organization, understanding your team, that's the core to leadership, because you're seeking to understand your people and what they've got and what they bring.
Okay, listeners, we need to talk about CyberCon 2026, and more specifically, how much money you could be saving right now. Early bird registrations for the Australian Cyber Conference are open, and they close on Monday, the 30th of June. And here's what that means in real terms. If you're an ASA member, a full 3-day Gold Pass is just $899 right now during the early bird special. That's a $480 saving off the full price 3-day Gold Pass for members just for registering right now. If you're not a member yet, early bird is currently $1,485, which is a $1,200 saving on the full price non-member ticket. And this isn't just any conference pass. A Gold Pass includes the full 3 days of Australia's leading cybersecurity conference, networking drinks, and the legendary CyberCon block party, all in Melbourne from the 14th to 16th of October 2026. But the date to remember right now is June 30th, because after that the prices do go up. So register now at cyberconference.com.au. That's cyberconference.com.au. We'll see you there. And you've spoken as well about volunteer workforces and salaried workforces. And you spoke a lot in your keynote as well about, especially if you're speaking to a room of volunteers, which we do at ASA all the time.
Yes.
ASA is an association built on volunteers, as are a lot of the organizations you've worked for. You know, cyber teams running incident response, they do tend to burn out in their own way, similar to the way that volunteers do. What have you learned about looking after people in sustained pressure roles that the cyber industry could be borrowing?
I think I've always had a philosophy as a leader. I will never ask of others what I'm not willing to do myself. I always respect and value the divergent skills and experience of others, especially in areas where I'm not adept or have that skill set. So understanding that I seek to form a relationship and put trust in what others bring, particularly that I don't have. I'm relying on them to be part of the equation. I think growing up and being a part of volunteer and salaried or career workforces, training, equipment, systems, support, how people work together, how people come together, reminds me every day that professionalism is not about whether you're paid to do what you do or not. Mm-hmm. Professionalism is about what you do and how you do it. And that can be volunteer and or salaried. And whether you're volunteer or salaried, when you're part of something, when you're invested in something, we must value and respect and appreciate that people are delivering on something and they're fulfilling a role. And whether they're paid or not is not material to their worthiness. Indeed, I've seen really poor performance and delivery in paid people, and I've seen really poor performance and delivery in volunteer people. But if we invest in the collective effort, we will see professional services, professional delivery over and over again, whether they're salaried or not. The support structures, the care structures should transcend the entire workforce, both salaried and volunteer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because you can look at it both ways, right? You can certainly see people who are being paid to do a job who probably don't get paid enough for the amount of expectation that's put on them. And then volunteers, I mean, yeah, look, I've known some volunteers in my time who say they're going to volunteer and then realize how much unpaid time of personal time that's going to require of them. But then I've met so many more volunteers who, wow, like you just look at them. I look at some of the people we have working with us at ASA who it's all free. Well, they lend us their time and their passion, right? And so
absolutely,
we as an association, we really have to lean into how we support them to be successful, because really we're nothing without them.
Well, that's exactly right. And I've always said publicly, I think being a part of a volunteer organisation such as ASA or my background with fire services, for example, in the RFS, it's a really important part of what I believe are the fundamental leadership skill developments, right? Because I love volunteers, because volunteers will come in and they will want to be able to contribute, to find a sense of belonging, to grow and develop, to be making a difference in whatever it is their volunteer vocation choice is. But the other wonderful strength that volunteers have is this ability to tell you to get stuffed, and they will leave if they find they're not valued, if they're not respected, if they don't find that inclusion, if they don't find that teamwork, if they don't find that basic respect for their worth, for their contribution, then they'll leave and go somewhere else where they can find that that's better appreciated or a better fit for them. So I think nothing holds them there except the sense of belonging and the sense of purpose and the ability to be part of something meaningful. So there's some really important life lessons, I think, in being part of a volunteer organisation, and especially a leadership role in a volunteer organisation. How do you keep the membership intact? Well, you do it because you're connecting people and you're making it worth their while.
Yeah, exactly. And the only thing that really keeps them there is that sense of purpose and value, right? Yeah. That's a really, really powerful statement. I want to switch for a moment to resilience, which is a term used a lot in the cyber industry. So thinking about your time with Resilience New South Wales, which has stood up to focus on social, economic, infrastructure and environmental recovery, what do you think an equivalent agency could look like in terms of cyber resilience in Australia? Or maybe a better way to put this is, if we were sort of, and okay, stuff like this does exist with the NOx and what have you, but what could cyber steal straight from that playbook that Resilience New South Wales had?
I think ultimately resilience becomes philosophy or a framework of seeking to learn from lived experiences, from life experience, whether they've happened to us personally or as our own organisation, but importantly in the business of cyber. Don't wait for it to happen to you. Seek to learn the lessons from others, both domestically and abroad. So I think our capacity to learn and then anticipate what's next is really, really important. So what can we do now with all those learnings to build in adaptations, build in structures that can hopefully prevent or limit the likelihood of that happening to us again in the future? But if it is going to happen, how do we ready ourselves to limit the impact? How do we ready ourselves to learn the lessons of the past, to know how we're going to lead through that next challenge? And most importantly, come out the other side more learned, more capable and stronger. And I think it's the Einstein that said, doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of stupidity or futility, right? Or absurdity. But similarly, if you take the Darwinian approach, it's not the loudest or the noisiest or the most polished of the species that survives into the future. It's the one that can actually learn from the past, understand its changing environment, and adapt and ready itself for those changes. And I think the core to resilience in any space, and particularly in the cyberspace, given the dynamic nature and changing nature of it, is to be constantly learning and readying ourselves to what's coming and being conscious of adaptation and getting through the next one to come out stronger and wiser the other side.
Yeah, I often say to a lot of my colleagues that in terms of learning, we get plenty of free lessons in our industry, and then eventually you will be someone else's free lessons. So
absolutely,
take the time to learn from the others.
And in reality, I think historically, if you would have gone back decades, when things happened, people tried to, I won't say cover it up in terms of it, but they tried to keep all the mess contained, right?
Absolutely.
No one wanted to share what we did wrong and all that sort of stuff. Whereas I think increasingly there are cultures across all sorts of industry, across all sorts of organizations, where everyone is agreeing and benefiting from shared learnings. And it was very strong in cultures in fire and emergency services where we used to call them debriefs and after action reviews and lessons learned processes, right? Whatever they are, it's your ability to be reflective after an event. And instinctively, I found over the years, though, that what we do, because we're always looking for what went wrong and how we do better, when it comes to an event review, we are very focused on what went wrong and why it went wrong. I would just ask everybody to take the same time in that debriefing or that after-action review process to have the other ledger up about try and capture what worked well and be very objective about that as well and say, all right, that worked well. Why was that the case? And how do we build on that and make sure we emulate that going forward and share that? So try to get the scorecard right and don't just be negative. I mean, negative is necessary because that's where we pick up learnings, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there are plenty of positives that come out of every crisis that we want to capture and continue to grow and develop and replicate going forward.
Some of the best, I guess, post-action reports, as you call them, or a post-incident report, as we would probably call it in cyber. Some of the best ones of those I've been a part of are the ones that lean in to what worked well first.
Absolutely.
We absolutely need to unpack the more negative elements of it, but there's more often than not, there's a lot that went right that just gets buried in the pain.
And often taken for granted. And there's a multifaceted step to those learnings processes, because whilst you've got a core team or group of people there at a particular crisis time, there's no guarantee that that's going to be the team that's going to be there next time, right? So how do we do the knowledge transfer to the next cohort that's coming in? So a lot of these reports or these outcomes help build the capabilities and the readiness for the teams that will replace us.
Yes. And Shane, one last one for the cyber leaders who are listening, a single piece of practical leadership advice for the moment they might have to walk into the boardroom in the middle of an incident or their next incident. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
Listen.
Love it.
Take stock. If you don't know the boardroom in a very truncated period of time, seek to listen and understand who's who in the zoo, so they say. But as I said today, as leaders, authenticity matters. When it comes to the boardroom environment, keeping it real, not understating, not overstating, keeping things real, no matter how unpleasant that might be, is really important to that boardroom briefing. It's the little things we say and do that can make the difference to building that credibility. So we just need to honour those core values of leadership, as I described today, around authenticity, around humility, drop the ego. You're part of something, you're not the something. Appreciate that everyone else has got a role and expertise to bear. Think about how the decisions or the actions you're planning on taking, how they will play out. And of course, communicate. Be really clear about communicating what we know, what we don't know, what we're doing, why we're doing it, all those sorts of things, and let people know you care.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I think a lot of lessons for not just our cyber audience, whether you are a CISO or a SecOps manager or an analyst. There's some really good takeaways there about what leadership means and what that means at all levels of an organization as well. And I'd probably say, listeners, this is one of those episodes of this podcast that I would say, share with people outside the industry too, because I think there's some universal lessons for everyone here. So Shane Fitzsimmons, thank you so much for supporting Canberra CyberConnect with your opening keynote this morning, and thank you so much for sharing your voice with us today.
No problem at all, David. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cyber Voices. Our music is by Sanagarut, our show artwork is by Studio Quarantine, and we record our show at This Is a Studio in Pran, Melbourne, part of Popplant Productions. Please make sure you follow the show on your podcast platform of choice and leave us a 5-star review. This will help others find the show. Also, please follow the association on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you want to add your voice to our ever-growing chorus of diverse cyber voices, have questions, feedback, or would like to be a sponsor, you can do so by emailing us at cybervoices@aisa.org.au. That's cybervoices@aisa.org.au. Are you an AISA member? If not, you should consider joining our network of over 12,000 members across Australia. An AISA membership can open doors, build professional networks, create lifetime friendships, and offer exclusive training, events, and other perks. Become a member today by heading to our website at aisa.org.au. That is all for today. I hope you will join us again next time on Cyber Voices.